So
Yeah,
the next category that we are delving into is cultural connection. Um, so I guess we'll just go through all the 9 points first, and then we'll go forward from there.
yeah, you can run through the slides.
So
Yes.
curriculum connects children to their rich heritage and traditions. That's point number one. It preserves and promotes the ancient wisdom of India. Students learn the essence of the scriptures. They engage with sound and forms of chanting and rituals. It keeps the vibrant oral traditions of Hinduism alive. Children understand the significance of Hindu festivals and customs. It fosters a deep sense of pride in their cultural identity. Students learn about the great epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata. It celebrates the diversity and richness of Indian culture.
I think, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Mirama was right. It's easier for you to get the point, but let's see how it goes. I would like to start off by giving a brief introduction to how, when we say culture from a Gurukulam's point of view, what we mean. So, to begin with, the minute generally nowadays, when we listen to the term culture or culture learning, or I want my child, or when a parent says, I want my child to be culturally rooted or have exposure to culture, what we generally end up thinking is, okay, the child should know Puranic stories. The child should know the name of devatas. The child can learn few shlokas. Or the child should know, okay, these are the festivals of India, and this is what happens. This is a kalasha. This is what a puja is. What do we use wheat for? What is this prasada? If the child knows, basically, if the child knows the expression of culture in these formats, and if the child knows Sanskrit, we feel that is culture. That is one definition of culture. But when we look at culture from the Gurukulam's perspective, and this is something I'll share what I got from what I learned during my Gurukulam journey, especially during the Samavartana age group, which is the final graduation years. Me and my batch, our first introduction to culture, to relate to what the concept of culture is with gulab jamun. I hope everybody over here is familiar with the famous Indian dish gulab jamun. Um, I am not a chef. I don't know step by step how it's made, but I know there is a sugar syrup that's made. And in that sugar syrup, this jamun is dipped into that and we let it soak. We let the jamun soak the sweetness or the sweet water. And that's when the gulab jamun is truly prepared. And while serving it also, at times we take the extra sugar syrup and we break it, we have it. Uh, the better the gulab jamun, the better it soaks. I mean, the better it soaks, the better we say it's a good gulab jamun. Culture is something what we soak into, what we absorb, the environment in which we are nurtured and nourished. That is our definition of culture when we come from the Gurukulam's point of view. And another important sentence that we, as my batch Sauparnika team, we relate to culture is content creation is culture creation. That was the theme of our graduation, of one of our final Samavartana classes. And why do I say that? When we at Leela Gurukulam look at culture, or from the Gurukulam's perspective, when we look at culture, culture is not just about wearing traditional clothes and doing a ritual. That's an expression of culture. Culture is something that makes you you, the content that you absorb. So you could be at any part of the world or in any tradition anywhere, wherever you are, whatever content in any format, which whatever you are absorbing is your culture. So we have words like internet culture, modern culture, ancient culture, South Indian culture, North Indian culture. It comes down to content in all forms. What's the kind of talking happening? What's the kind of conversations you are a part of? Work culture. How do people behave? What even to the minimum detail of uh, how a place is arranged, how it's aligned, how you go through, what conversations you're listening to, what are the symbols around there. So if let's say if you walk into a Gen Z, let's talk about Gen Z culture, me being part of Gen Z. If you walk into a room of a Gen Z today, you will find a very Pinteresty vibe. We call it Pin. These are all Gen Z terms because I'm part of the Gen Z culture. I absorb that content, hence I'm part of that culture. So what's Gen Z culture about? It's a culture of this generation where we are expressing ourselves through weird means, to be very frank. We find we try to verify every normal thing and then make that the normal. That in short, that's how I can sum up Gen Z culture from my point of view. So when we say culture, it's the content that we absorb. What is Bharatiya culture then from that point of view? If you look at Bharata, Sanatana Dharma, Gurukulam, everything that we have spoken yesterday and today, we are a culture of learning. Learning is at the center of a Gurukulam. I know I've repeated this point every time I speak. I think this is the only point I keep talking about because that's the only point the Gurukulam is anchored to. Gurukulam is about making a child a self learner. Gurukulam is about self knowledge. Gurukulam is about nurturing a lifelong learner. And it's about learning not in the level of just the body, mind, and emotions, which is skills or tax or being smart, but it is also spiritual. So, you as a complete human being, how learning systems work in you and what your spirit actually yearns for, that learning is what the Gurukulam focuses on. So, if Bharata was a land of Gurukulam and, the center of Gurukulam was culture, then the culture of the center of Gurukulam was learning, then the culture of Bharata was about learning. So all the expressions that you see, it could be in the format of shlokas, it could be in the format of Puranas, it could be in the format of dance, music, other forms of various forms of drama, folk art, folk music, everything, every expression of art, every expression of different kinds of craft, our way of living, our pujas, our festivals, our rituals, our devatas, all of it are forms of culture, which means they are a symbol or they're an expression of our inner learning processes. So many of those points that you saw on the screen, all of them are true. Yes, all those 9 points is a Gurukulam, all of that. Yes, a Gurukulam is all of that. But today, the where I get my case first, Nutanma, one part is about having the true essence of Gurukulam and the true essence of what culture is. It is about learning, yes, true. But today, that's not how the word culture is viewed. In one of the slides, it was mentioned children learn about Ramayana and Mahabharata. Yes, Ramayana and Mahabharata are part of our culture. They symbolize a specific kind of learning that happens at a specific kind of time. So they are coded, uh, they are stories coded with learning. So we are filled with a culture which is so coded that we can decode them in our own way in different times. That's why it's Sanatana. It's eternal. At every point of time, we decode something new, more applicable for today's day and age. So Mahabharata and Ramayana, if we look at it from the Gurukulam's point of view, we as Leela Gurukulam or anybody who really is looking for a true Gurukulam will not be hell-bent upon a child memorizing the entire Ramayana or Mahabharata. People feel culture learning is a child just knowing that story. But that is not the association which we have with culture. Why was that story put in that place? What energy is it symbolizing? And when we talk about meaning, people go the other way. This is a shloka, this is a meaning. Was it that entire point of that cultural aspect of shloka being there was it is above the mind? It is just for you to hear. Just the sound, the vibrations of those shlokas do something to you. It activates some learning in you. So you just have to listen to it. So that bit, the why that cultural element was put in is something people might not relate with, but is it connected to learning? Yes. So does the Gurukulam promote it or does the Gurukulam have it? Is it an integral part of Gurukulam? Yes, it is. That's why even at Leela Gurukulam, whatever we could be teaching children about global culture, still you will see a Sanatana outlook to it. That Sanatana outlook is because children could be learning about maths, science, children could be learning about countries around the world, children could be learning about farms and I don't know, pottery, quilling, different types of art forms. We view it with the lens of culture because that is when we view it with the lens of learning. that is a brief I would like to give about how we, when we as Gurukulam assess the word culture, we are really not meaning the expressions of culture. They come along. But the core essence is what content is your child absorbing? What environment is your child in and what kind of content it is absorbing? That is what we refer to as culture. And in our specific case, when you talk about Sanatana Dharma, it is content of self knowledge. So any content of self knowledge can be expressed through various different cultural expressions. So yeah, that is the brief, and I think now we can have our chit chat about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Raiva. So the case that I'd like to make is, let me share again. So yes, the Gurukulam is the place which has kept this tradition alive, where, in today's day and age, we see that people are so easily, without giving it a second thought, just rejecting the traditions that, have been followed all along through so many years and everything. But without a second thought, without knowing even why, they just tend to reject it. But yeah, kudos to the Gurukulam uh, culture of to maintain this in all the various points that you all saw. And why is this important is because it leads to a large part of identity formation for an individual. And our ancients knew this, and it largely happens when a child touches, between the ages of 9 and 11. No matter you find so many homeschoolers who have taken to an alternate path of education and everything. But what happens is, no matter what you are doing, or no matter what the parents are doing, between the ages of 9 and 11, the child just tends to cut off from the parents, doesn't want to, will not take anything from the parents, and begins to form their own identity, and this is a very crucial part of their formation of the individual self. And even today's science has recognized this. Psychology states that, in the adolescence there is the stage of identity formation, and they were able to observe it, and they were, based on their observations, they have published studies, and it is a well recognized concept that is there, that this identity formation happens in this age. But they were not able to identify what are the inner workings of it. They don't have the science. I mean, the science still hasn't reached there. But our ancient wisdom had a completely, they could look through it, and they have identified, and that's why they have cultivated this model. They had cultivated this model where, the child stays at home with the parents till about 9 to 11, until Praishyarta, and then they move to the Gurukula. Because to stay away from the societal influences. And even with that, even though at a time where it was culturally vibrant and they upheld all the traditions that were there, very you can say very ritualistically. It may seem like rituals at the outset, but there is so much meaning in everything that has been set forward from the morning. Early in the morning, you will see in front of the house they will be putting a rangoli and everything. There's a meaning to every single rangoli that is put on which day and everything. So every little practice, or every little thing that is done or inserted into the Indian way of life as a tradition, as culture, as heritage, is, very thoughtfully, very meticulously, it's been placed there not without reason. Okay, it's been placed there with a lot of meaning, with a lot of cause, for spiritual growth, to keep enhancing that, to keep pushing the person to realize the divinity, within them. So in instead of, forget about upholding it still, it's unfortunate what has happened, over the uh, uh, over the times that we have been invaded, and there have been attempts to this one to vanquish the whole thing. But unfortunately, that is not what is unfortunate. It was meant to happen, it happened. But what is unfortunate today is we tend to think that we are no longer colonized. Of course, geographically we are not colonized, but our minds are still very much colonized. Just because that the West has not approved of this, or they are just calling this as superstition, and just dismissing it like that, we have had this tendency of taking to this narrative without giving it a second thought. We tend to like look at our own traditions, or anybody who is still following something like this, with a certain kind of bias, or with condescends, like this is somebody who's very backward, very old fashioned, trad, as the new lingo is. This, you just tend to classify it like that. But you have to come to an understanding. I mean, if you don't even know what it is for, if you don't even know what if you don't even care to know what it is for, it doesn't matter. But if you don't even respect it, if you don't even acknowledge it, so that is where my contention is. That's the problem that I have, that nobody knows about it, and they have not spent a little bit of time also to delve into knowing why this is there in the first place. Why these traditions, why this cultures, why this method of celebrations. It's okay, I mean, do it for the curiosity, just get to know why this is there, and then as and when you dig deeper into it, you will know. I mean, like, there is so much meaning into everything, and you can't help but being astounded by it. In that, and in that, I really appreciate that people may be from Gen Z or Gen Alpha, as a children. I don't even know the terminologies that are going on, but but anybody who goes to the Gurukulam system can't help but have this deep gratitude for making life so simple for us. You just put one rangoli and you're harnessing this energy for yourself from somewhere. You just light a lamp and you're connected to something else. There's so much meaning into each little practice. So from little kids as young as 3 to these Gen Z kids who are 20, 21, each one of them have this deep, profound respect for whatever tradition is there as part of the Bharatiya culture. And it's really not about superstitiously or ritualistically doing it day after day and moment after moment. It's not that. It's about knowing what is there and then choosing from it what to do, and doing it consciously if you want to. And that is the kind of freedom that they have earned. And I really don't side with the people who reject it or look at this with with a condescending eye, and who tend to raise questions or laugh at it, or I don't understand that, honestly. So if you don't care to, at least after knowing about this, then you reject it, is something else. But without making an attempt, just because it has not been stamped okay by the West, you tend to reject it. Then are you telling me that you are still not colonized? Are you telling me that until the masters, the white masters, stamp an approval stamp on this, you will not take to it? Because the US Tata has stamped okay to yoga, and therefore the whole world does yoga. And the US Tata has stamped okay to meditation and om chanting, and therefore the whole world does it. So is it truly like we are waiting for a stamp from the other side of the globe to in fact embrace it, or at least care enough to know about it?
Nuzama, just to counter to that, right? Forget the West stamping it, agreeing it, approving it, or whatever. So if we are looking at these things, right, there are a couple of points that you shared on the slides earlier. So I think it's just the next slide or the one after that.
Okay.
So the question here is, how many of us, maybe can you go to the slide next to this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of the children, I mean, parents, they expect that the children, if we are looking at learning culture, it just is at the level where I know how to recite the Gita or some shlokas or mantras.
It
right?
stops there. Yeah.
Not about getting to understand the meaning of it. So if you go there, there's one more slide that says, it talks about Ramayana and Mahabharata, right?
Yeah.
How many of us believe Ramayana and Mahabharata is not just an epic or a mythology. It is itihasa, it is history, it is true history. Where do we stand on that? As a lot of us Indians, if a child comes and asks, is Rama real or is Krishna real, was he real? There is no confident answer that comes from the parents to say, yes, it is. Right? If I'm starting from there as my belief, which I cannot confidently tell that this is real, they were real people. This is exactly how it happened. The word itihasa means this is how it happened. But if we do not completely 100% believe in it, whatever you learn, you recite the entire Gita 100 times, 1,000 times in your life, what it's supposed to give you is what you will get individually as a unique learning. But then what we usually think of it is that everybody should learn. What happened there on the fields of what Krishna told Arjuna was in the context of what Arjuna wanted it for. If you read the Gita in your life right now, this is what it is for you. But then a lot of us as parents, Bharatiyas, forget the rest of the world. A lot of people from the world agree to it. But we still don't have 100% commitment to say, yes, these were real people. If we don't buy into that fact, and then we tell our children, learn from this, how are they going to learn? You don't believe in something and you're asking me to learn from it. You don't know what it means. You do not connect with the devatas. You don't understand what rituals are. You don't understand what the culture means. And you are asking me to learn from it. And you want me to have this as my curriculum. How would they pick it up? Though these are essentials, we all understand. Where do we stand there?
I know people tend to get caught up in this, about it,
Not about the caught up. Again, it goes back to this whole point, right? Why am I caught up there again?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why, because this is a case of generationally being beaten down into thinking that whatever the West says okay to is what is okay, or is what is fine, and that is a conditioning in itself, right? And so that is why they get caught up in it. They're pulled in two parts. They don't have the answers here themselves to say whether to say it with conviction, whether these events are true, or while the other side is saying this is just mythology. And in my opinion, don't even get caught up in that. No, what does it matter? So if it was real, is it true that it will only work for you then? Or if it was not real, will it work for you? It's just at least care enough to know what it is. So the underlying base concept of why this was even written is not cared enough to look into for.
Yeah, in a way, it is like you try it out. If you think it works for you, then prescribe it to others. But a lot of people are shying away from even looking at it because they don't have the conviction to it.
That's true.
Right? And then again, we're talking about cultural identity, and we were talking about it yesterday. I think when we are today, I think Raiva made this point. We are interacting with a lot of people across geographies, across cultures. And for me, my cultural identity is really important so that I can appreciate and connect with other people from other culture. Is something that has to happen, right? Otherwise, it is just that it's a peer influence. Oh, you feel that your culture is great. I know about it because everybody is speaking about it. I don't know about myself. So how will I even bond and bring something to the table in those conversations? That is something that doesn't happen. And again, this is again coming back to not subscribing to everything that is said, but having a firm intention to do something about it. Right? So as you mentioned earlier, the richness that our culture has and what are the rituals that we follow, it was given as a method, as a tantra, like what Ma was mentioning earlier. It doesn't mean that it is to be followed only by people who understand it, right? This is a way or a technique of getting to somewhere. That is something that we don't have an understanding of. And nobody wants to look at it from that perspective. Certain terms that are used are considered as taboo subjects. They don't even want to use those terms. because of whatever shallow understanding that has been given around it.
In fact, Bharaji, the word tantra itself is supposed to be taboo, right?
Taboo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's associated with occult, and it's associated with, I don't know what all practices. So the minute you say tantra is the basic foundation or the methodology based on which this culture is built, it's very difficult for people to understand that.
Yeah.
And the minute you see cultural expressions, how many people confuse it with religion? Bharata is a land that did not have that concept at all.
Yeah.
So we've taken that concept, we have force-fitted our devatas to fit a very alien idea of what a god is supposed to be. Our devatas are getting force-fitted there, and talk about cultural identity where people are not able to, I don't know when it shifted from, oh, you're from the land of snake charmers to you're the land of Bangalore, which is an IT hub. That transition happened. But think about it, when a cultural expression is misunderstood to be a religious expression, and people are somewhere fearful about religion as much as they are passionate about religion, somewhere the fear of being narrow-minded or orthodox or rigid about it comes across, then anybody who is culturally expressing themselves also seems to be a person who's been sort of brainwashed into being something very narrow. And if that is the outlook that society has, then does your child really need Gurukulam? We are all accepting it. That's where it is. So how do you come to a Gurukulam and expect that Gurukulam does not, with its content, does not have a child who will express itself culturally? And that need not be confused with something religious. Where does that aspect come? The last session we had yesterday, we spoke in detail about how Sanatana Dharma's foundations come in and where it is not religion and what this symbolisms actually mean to us. In fact, our next session is going to be on what spirituality really means, what is spiritual seeking, and how does spiritual development occur. These are all interconnected to each other. But culture means, okay, here it is. Let's look at this, okay, because this is the best counter I can put for this. Culture is the medium which we absorb and imbibe, in which we flourish and grow. Like Raiva usually in all her sessions, she says that, like, if you organically support the growth, and I think Nutanma was giving the source of the word culture yesterday, which means to support and nourish, right?
Yes, to take care of.
When you nourish plants, it's called agriculture, right? Pisciculture is when you nourish the fish. Sericulture, so for everything, horticulture, you have all of this coming in different forms of when you use culture. So what is human culture? Right? To nourish human beings, and like I'm referencing to what Skanda said, the difference between natural and organic, in a way that is harmonious to their nature, but in a format or a process that can help them flourish. So Bharatiya culture is what then? And the word Sanskriti doesn't really equate completely to culture. It's also about being, it's a composition. It's a composition that nourishes. So when you're having this, and the expressions of that, the symbolisms of that are misunderstood to be religion, and a parent is very clear that I don't want to get into my child to get into the study of religion, that creates a big clash. Secondly, with the gulab jamun example, if that's what you're absorbing, and the society doesn't have a culture of learning, then what use is a Gurukulam to your child? Because at the end of the day, individually, you've been telling, if people come to know, only if they come to know. Like Nutanma's point is, only if they come to know, and only if they have apply a bit of thinking. So is the training of thinking culture, thinking skills part of our culture?
No, you're rather taught what to think rather than how to think.
So nobody understands that while the mind is being developed, as a child up to 6-7 years really does not have a mind. It is acting completely on the mind of people around it. The development of the mind itself starts, not the brain. The mind itself starts once the brain development reaches a certain part. So the mind development continues up to young adulthood. When the mind is developed itself, if you don't introduce the thinking skills, then how are you going to bring about that later? And if that capacity to even think a little differently, creatively, think a little progressively, sometimes critically, adversarially, if you're not able to imbibe those kinds of thinking, then what is the use of, knowing? Because you don't know what to do with what you know now. Okay, you know this is what the Gurukulam is all about. You know this is what holistic development is. Come into your awareness. Knowing is just something coming into your awareness. But thinking about what you know is highly influenced by the medium that you are in, which is called society right now. And that medium does not have a culture of learning. That medium does not have an identity of what it means. Cultural identity of a Bharatiya is that you are always in the pursuit of knowledge. Basically, that is a cultural identity of a Bharatiya. Are we able to say that? If someone asks us, oh, your culture is so great, it's so vibrant, you've got bindis and foods and clothes, we're all happy with that. And you'll have 101 videos that start with, kya aapko pata tha? कि so and so temple में क्या आप जानते हैं कि हमारी संस्कृति में ये होता है वो होता है, but why होता है? The indications of all of that are so different. So when you're absorbed in that medium, you're not a dry jamun, you're a completely soaked up gulab jamun. And if that syrup doesn't have the learning culture, you have absorbed that, then why is the Gurukulam for your child? Right? A little bit of that is there in the syrup, it helps. Look at us now, okay? Here it is, at an average, okay? Just blindly give me a number, just a blind number. How many children today are completely educated in the Gurukulam path? All over the world.
I'll just throw a rough number, some 10,000.
10,000. Okay, now we don't have a census for it.
Nothing.
No one puts it into account. Right. You want to bring Gurukulam methodology to the forefront. You're a Gurukulam activist. Okay. Do you know how many operational Gurukulams are there in Bharata? Does anyone know? No, I'm not saying wrong for anybody. Right. Do we have a compendium of that?
Currently, yes, roughly 4,500, but most of them, I'm sorry to say, cannot be called Gurukulams also. And the ones that truly are unfortunately in very, very pathetic conditions. And
so I'm not talking about somebody who just puts a name called Brilliant International Gurukulam, right? It's not that, because I've seen, stock market Gurukulam, computer Gurukulam. So let's not go by that.
Yeah.
The actual methodology and the essence of what the Gurukulam means, including Veda Patashalas, luckily those are preserved. Those are run like Gurukulams were always run, with state support, with society support. It's the community of people who come together, identify the need for these centers, and the people who are running these centers and take care of the needs. The king or the state would support them, right? Without that kind of support, but with probably supports of their own sampradayas, there are Patashalas, Veda Patashalas running, there are Gurukulams running. So out of the 4,500, if half of them are defunct, you still have a number of 2,000?
Yeah.
And in those 2,000, considering the greatness of our syrup right now, let's imagine there are 30 kids at the least graduating every year. Can we put that number safely?
Yeah.
So you have 60,000 children, probably at the age of 20. Okay. So you're expecting them to have children when? It's 2025 now. When are you expecting them to have children? Average.
If they're graduating today, then let's give it 10 to 15 years.
So by 2040, you will have at least 60,000 children ready to get into a Gurukulam method, already prepared with that mindset in that syrup. And self-knowledge is something that goes down to 7 generations. So tell me what's happening in 2000 now.
Oh, I can't do the math, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's all going there. It's all going there. Because anything else is not going to sustain. This is an assured sustenance for 7 generations. This is the fruit of the tree that you will never get to taste. Get it? But you should know that it's there. So the number of Gurukulams that are working today, what is this, what are they following as a curriculum? What is their syllabus? Okay, which we should understand, because we know it's a cyclic syllabus. It's not going to fit into the linear structure that people expect, but yet it's there. Yet it's there. All of these practices are there. If you put that number, do you know what a huge movement it is, actually? It's just rumbling like a quiet earthquake beneath the ground right now. If anyone can recognize it, they'll join in it. That's the movement that has begun. Because everything else has, without any effort, has failed. spiritual seeking is reaching its ultimate apex. Human consciousness is going through a change in the threshold. And you know that when do you know that society is going to go through a big change? Every time society has to go through a big change in its narrative, that's when stand-up comedians come up. That's when humor comes up. Humor is an indication that a society is ready to laugh at itself. And to be ready to laugh at themselves means that change is happening. We find what we are doing very silly. Human consciousness is reaching its state of changing its own design. That's why we find so many children born under the quote-unquote convenient autism learning difficulties bracket. Right? So the change is here, but is it showcased? That showcasing of the change is very important, because that's when people will have the courage to speak for themselves. Here it's becoming isolated cases of different parents doing different things, different organizations doing different things. As much as the unification of all sampradayas of Hindus is necessary, the unification of all gurukulams as well is necessary. Only then it shows as a movement. So when that is the only thing that can bring about a cultural change. Without that cultural change coming, is the Gurukulam really for your child? So do we get the 9 points?
No, yeah. And then this is not just, for an individual's path. What many people don't know, again, is that in the process of this identity formation is when the individual is looking like, to answer questions of who am I? And a large part of this will be taken from their cultural identity. What are my roots? What is my past? What is my history? All of this goes into making a complete to give a complete picture to the individual. And from that identification, which stems clarity. And from that clarity stems creative expressions. And that is as far as an individual path goes. But from this creative expression is, one form of it is innovation, which is currently a huge lag in our country, and that innovation as a whole, imagine if this 60,000 children currently can increase in multitudes. Innovation, that kind of innovation can definitely lead to prosperity of the whole country.
And collectively, that's what is called culture.
Yes. And in a harmonious way, like we were absolutely discussing yesterday, with involving compassion and everything. So yeah, the base root is here. So
yeah, it's very idealistic, but come to the reality of it right now. Is that culture present today? So let's again, I'll at the expense of being repetitive, you cannot get to the essence of what Bharatiya Sanskriti, our system of devatas, our approach, all our metaphysical practices, our scriptures. You can't get to the essence of that without having the foundational lens of Tantra. You cannot look at physics, biology, neuroscience, quantum science, epigenetics. You can't go to paranormal consciousness studies and explore this completely. Each of them might give you an approach. But until Tantra is in place for you, you can't get to see it. Look at culture. Think about the swastika. It's a symbol. How many ways it's been used around the world? For us, it's a symbol of Lakshmi. It's a symbol of abundance. So swastika is a symbol. That pattern, and when you look at it, the visualization is creating something within your system, not just the brain, but within your entire system. And that's why it's a symbol of culture. And a practice of using that symbol is given to you on Diwali or on a particular puja or something like that. What is the science of a pattern making a difference in your existence? What is that science called? Which science explains it? Which study explains it?
They just conveniently put it off into something that they can't understand, called as the field of metaphysics. In that, it comes down to ontology, which is weird, because anything that they don't have answers to, they just conveniently box it into this.
I have a problem with the they. I think we should use we, because we are speaking in on behalf of all humanity. So I would say we. But then also, before ontology, there's something like cymatics that it will go to, the study of how patterns and resonances interact with each other. And then the larger body of science will bracket it as pseudoscience. So you just beat around the bush and you go round and round.
Yeah.
Right. So when you can't, when you're in a society which doesn't even accept or can't take the fact in, or is not encultured with the idea that symbols and patterns around you make a difference in your life, Raiva and I were traveling at one point in time, somewhere in an airport. We saw somebody, busy coloring a mandala coloring book. And when we read the mandala, the pattern of the mandala, it was something like, I will destroy you or something like that. I don't remember the exact phrase. But it was there in a coloring book and someone was doing it because it's adult coloring for relaxation. So do people have the understanding that that pattern can create that energy? Is there a connection? Or if you talk about it, you're called crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So where is it? And again, when this, okay, so for this matter, the 9 points are ours. People are not ready for it yet. This you have to take because, in the Gurukulam, for parents who come for short courses, whenever we give mandalas, the issue with it. You have seen parents sit and, oh, my child is not doing the mandala. My child is not doing the mandala as if it's a homework. And we are like, don't force the child to color the mandala. Don't ever do that. And people who want to jump into videos on social media and copy and then make yantras, not understanding what yantras are. If that is a place, if that is a society we are in, if that's the understanding you have, then is the Gurukulam for your child? No. You grab the 9 points, Bharatji, do that first, declare it off.
It is definitely for the parents to begin with, to break away from this.
So we are at 18 reasons why your child does not need the Gurukulam. 0 reasons today in both the sessions why your child needs the Gurukulam. But the next session is all about spiritual development. So you don't know what will happen, Nutanma. But before we go into that, I certainly want to make something stated here. A bunch of rats came and, destroyed my home. And because I got so scared of them, I put the chairs on top of the tables and I moved the sofa out of this place and I did all of that. And finally, one fine day, there was nothing left to eat. So they went back. And what I did is I closed all the holes in the door and the windows from which they had come in. But then I keep giving them a lot of power by telling them that they taught me how to rearrange my furniture. They didn't. I rearranged my furniture because it was difficult for me to handle them. And now they are gone. And I'm not able to arrange it back the way it was before because I've forgotten. I have to stop blaming the rats. I'm giving them too much power by doing that. If some other ethnicity, some other nation is declaring yoga to be very important, I'm very interested to know how they arrived at it. What did they do to arrive at it? Because that's something I can use. I already had it. I understand the passion that we have. We collectively, when we get into, it's a very strong motivation. My Indic roots, my true identity. It's a very strong and it's a very necessary motivation. But that necessary passion and motivation also has to come along with the maturity of, let me get into the actual root of what it is.
Yes.
They are gone. I can rearrange. What was there to stop me?
Yes.
What did stop me? So where did this begin? Everything began, and when we talk about how our minds are, to use the term colonized, which generally everybody uses, why did it happen? I have to go back to the root and say why it happened. When did the support for the Gurukulam stop? When did that education stop? When did we stop creating a thinking population of people? When did the support of education stop? When was Tantra taken out of this country such that even when foreign invaders went out, we were not able to recreate? Somewhere that stopped. So you are a Gurukulam activist. There are so many people like you who are passionate about Bharata and about Gurukulam. Today, when you make so much of noise, people are not changing their narrative. What did these guys do to change anyone's narrative? A Bharatiya culture, the temple system, the Devata system that goes way beyond the number of, 200 years or 300 years or 2000 years that people came. It's way beyond that. So many years of a narrative could just be changed in what? From 1835 to 1947. How could it happen that you take one 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 15,000-year-old belief system and you can change the narrative of all the people that are coming rooted in that belief system for generations? They were able to do that in 100, 200 years? Or something weakened within us because of which we bought that narrative? If the Gurukulams were there, if Tantra was our base of approach, would an external narrative have creeped in? And if somebody is accidentally, coincidentally, quote unquote, any which way finding that narrative back in their land and therefore hailing the practices of ancient Bharata, shouldn't we learn from that that it's the mode and the approach and the root of what they have taught that we should be looking at? So when we catch that and when society will be ready is when Gurukulam is for your child.
Yes, I will give you that point by saying this for everybody who's
And
listening.
Bharaji,
Whatever
see.
we spoke, this is your cue on how to think. You have been told what to think, but these series of questions that were put up here, this is your cue on how to think and think
Nirmala,
over.
just to make it easy. Sorry, my God.
Yeah, no, I'm saying the dangerous thing is now you'll find 100 things coming on. Do you know what Tantra is? क्या आपको पता है कि यंत्रों के साथ क्या किया जा सकता है? And then you'll have everybody look at the Sri Yantra for 15 minutes and this will happen to you. You know, all that will start coming. But then it's nice that it's happening because it will hit a saturation point and people will then start searching for the reality.
Yeah.
Right? Let all the rumors come in, let everything come in, and then people will actually start searching. Oh, okay, so what is it really? Sorry, Bharaji, please go ahead.
नहीं ma'am, what I want to say is ज़माना trend पे चलता है. So there was a trend for Sudoku at a time. Then there was Vedic math that came, and then there was Indian people winning badminton. Badminton became a trend. Now chess is a trend. जब तक ये trend नहीं बनेगा, तब तक Gurukulam is not for you. So trend बनाओ उसको पहले.
Yeah, that's what I always talk about, not demand versus supply.
So to make it a trend, you know what it takes.
If you don't know what it takes, just learn what Montessori did. You'll learn. I'm speaking at the end of the session, right? So you keep the timestamp if you need it, Bharaji. But that's the truth. They've done a brilliant job. Yeah. It springs from an Italian system of education. It's not part of our culture, but the demand came.
Oh, yes. While we have touched upon this, let me just add, because I spoke about, the Western stamp of approval, the Montessori system in itself. So when she was here, Maria Montessori was brought to India to train teachers to set up the model of education for us here, the new ones. So she was.
And what age group? And what age group?
She was primarily doing it for kids under 10.
Correct.
And even over that.
So at that time, our children up to 10 years of old were supposed to be at home with their Ajji Tata.
Exactly.
Doing pujas, learning Puranas, and interacting with Devatas, keeping their imagination alive. Okay.
Yes.
Now, that was a meticulous decision. The entire process, let's not comment on it. Okay.
But no, not the process.
In the principles of Montessori itself, it very clearly says that education should be culturally harmonious to the child.
Yes.
It says that. And therefore, the Indian Montessori teachers, trained teachers, are the best in the world. Like, we are Bharatiyas. So you give us anything, we become the best when it comes to education. Without elaborating on it, the point is, what they did was brilliant. How it became a trend is brilliant.
Yes. No, why, a certain level of brilliance also came in is that is what I was just pointing at, is that, so when she was here for 7 years, in fact, she was very enamored by the indigenous system of education, the Gurukulam model of education. She was completely startled by the awesomeness of it. And she began to look into it and she began to study into it. And the entire Montessori, methodology over the age of 10 is influenced by the Gurukulam education. But the caveat here is that in her education
And
from
yet
the
had-
5-tiered
and-
cake that it is.
Yes,
It
yes.
was-
And yet she had great respect for it because she was
had-
able to see the brilliance of it, right?
Yes, yes.
Like when she, whatever you can see the materials, it's based on the entire concept of Panchabhuta. So for
Yes.
her to move from Panchabhuta to Panchatattva would have been such a big journey. I can imagine that.
Very true. Yeah. So that's why she even named the methodology for kids above 10 years known as cosmic education. Taking just, that's what, like I said, just a sliver of the 5-tiered cake that the Gurukulam system of education is. So everybody who is so happy with the Montessori system and everything, they are just happy with just like a crumb. So imagine if you eat the whole cake.
Yes, but then it's an accepted thing. It's a trend. It's part of society.
Yeah.
Right. Everything, others are not. Other systems are not so easily part of what mainstream calls great.
Yeah.
You get it? So any education system that springs from that particular land is very suitable for the children of that particular land, because there is a lifestyle involved in it. There are situational things involved in it, right? In Bharata, you can't get a child to isolate themselves and sit on a mat. It's a very different thing for culturally an Indian child. It starts meaning very different. So each of these systems, they have, like, there are some systems of education are vehemently against children being exposed to anything digital. A Gurukulam system never brings that into the picture. So when Rama was at the Gurukulam with Vasishtha, the skills that were required for that time were given to him. So much so that he was even open to learning it from Ravana, to say that I've learned theoretically, you have actually done this practically for so many years. You have to tell me how it works out, that other part also. And then when you come to the Pandavas and Kauravas who are trained on warfare. So at every point in time, the Gurukulam, towards the end of the journey of Gurukulam in Samavartana, has trained children for the skills needed for them to develop their life. So everything, academic, non-academic, any skills that are given to a child at the end of the Gurukulam journey is given in the Montessori system as a basis in the beginning of their schooling journey. So these two things arise from the needs and requirements of two separate land masses. But it is trend. Like Bharatji said, that's trend. That's trend to go to a preschool, and preschools who are not even Montessori trained are calling themselves Montessori because that much of trend it is.
Yeah.
Right? That equipment seems exclusive. The use of it, the way the teachers are trained to speak about it. Our Gurukulam mentors and parents can't speak about the Gurukulam like a Montessori mentor can speak about their, and they have sensorial physical equipments.
And
so
to a level when I was growing up as a kid, I remember in my hometown, a new English medium school was called a Montessori for whatever reasons.
Yeah, sometimes a primary school or KG level kindergarten school is called Montessori.
And trends don't exist just in one class of society. I know people who are from a very, very, very weak socio-economic background who find pride in saying that my child is going to convent. They don't know what convent means. Any English school, English medium school is called a convent because they have seen in their past, probably 2 generations back, and even in their generation, anyone who can speak English is getting a better job. So it becomes aspirational. No one to blame here, but that's what the society is. If that is the case of where the world is, we got a 9 points, but I'd like to say it again. The Gurukulam is not for your child. I would like to scream from the top of the mountain and scream it out to everybody. Gurukulam is not for your child.
I'm there on the same mountain standing with you saying every point that they get is a loss of a point for humanity, and it is a loss for humanity.
My voice is louder and sweeter than yours.
I'll
now debate
from
that.
The other side, and I hope it touches the ears of whoever it has to touch.
Every time I take a class on Bhagavad Gita or anything, you take any topic, you take Gurukulam education, take Indian culture. Within 5 minutes, people are sleeping. Ma, that's a problem. I'm having that problem. Right. I also, yeah, let's see. Anyways.
Kanda.
Yes, Kanda is the only hope now. 18-0. We'll meet at 8 o'clock to see how what Indian spirituality really means, how Gurukulam stands for it, how direction is needed. What does it mean to be an informed spiritual seeker? An interesting topic with a lot of, again, and that topic, a very hard one for my team to counter, but somehow we'll end up doing it.
All right. So we'll meet again at 8. A good Sunday evening. See you all.